The silver gift tucked beneath my arm was worth more than anyone at that anniversary party could imagine. Yet my father never looked at it. Instead, he looked at me, smiled as though he were doing me a favor, and pointed toward a dusty garage. "It's just for extended family," he said. 5 simple words. 5 words that erased 34 years of trying to earn a place at my own family's table. Everyone else had a seat beneath the white pergola. My younger brother Brett was laughing with our cousins. Aunt Deborah was helping Grandma Ruth settle into her chair. Even Cody Marsh, the cousin who had once pawned Grandma Ruth's treasured garnet earrings while she was recovering from surgery, was seated comfortably at one of the decorated tables with champagne already waiting for him. I was the only person carrying a gift, and the only person without a chair. What none of them knew was that the flat silver package I held wasn't just an anniversary present. It carried something that would change the future of our family forever. My name is Iris Foster. I'm 34 years old, and I make a living uncovering financial lies. As a forensic CPA, I spend my days staring at endless spreadsheets, bank statements, and forgotten transactions until hidden truths finally reveal themselves. Numbers don't lie. People do. Maybe that's why I ignored the lies inside my own family for so many years. Growing up, nobody ever called me the favorite daughter. I wasn't the funny one or the charming one. That title belonged to Brett. I became something else entirely. The dependable one. If Grandma Ruth needed someone to drive her to a doctor's appointment, my phone rang. If Christmas dinner needed organizing, I built the schedule. If birthday cards had to be mailed, bills had to be sorted, relatives reminded, or emergencies handled, everyone assumed I'd quietly take care of it. They never asked whether I had plans. They simply expected me to show up. Some people mistake reliability for love. I spent 15 years making that mistake. A therapist once told me something I couldn't understand at the time. When you're always rescuing everyone else, she said, eventually they'll forget you needed saving too. I smiled politely during that session. Then I went home and coordinated 3 family birthdays before bedtime. Looking back, I should have listened. The anniversary celebration had started as another responsibility that somehow landed on my shoulders. My mother, Diane, called me almost 5 months before the event. "I want something elegant," she said without even saying hello. "Gold chairs. Real linens. Good flowers. And don't forget a photographer." "No please." "No, would you mind?" Just another assignment. So I handled everything. I compared venues. Negotiated catering prices. Organized dietary restrictions. Reserved transportation for Grandma Ruth's wheelchair. Even the musicians playing classical music in the garden were my choice. Every tiny detail existed because I had quietly made it happen. Nobody noticed because they never noticed the person behind the curtain. While planning the party, I secretly worked on something far more important. For nearly 2 years, I'd been restoring the only surviving photograph from my parents' wedding day. The original picture was cracked, faded, and barely recognizable after decades tucked inside an old kitchen cabinet. I hired restoration specialists. Found an archival printer. Ordered a handcrafted walnut frame. When it was finished, the photograph looked as though it had been taken yesterday. But the photograph wasn't the most valuable thing inside the silver package. Hidden beneath it rested documents proving something my parents didn't even know. Documents connected to our family's beloved lake cabin. Documents I'd protected in complete silence. I imagined my father's face when he opened it. For once, I hoped he wouldn't see me as the family organizer. Maybe. Just maybe. He'd finally see me as his daughter. That hope stayed alive all the way to the venue. It survived the drive. It survived carrying the gift through the parking lot. It even survived until I walked toward the seating chart standing near the entrance. I smiled while searching for my name. Table 1. Table 2. Table 3. Nothing. I searched again. Every guest had an assigned seat. Neighbors. Friends. In-laws. Even Cody. My name wasn't listed anywhere. Before I could convince myself it was simply a printing mistake, I heard my father's footsteps behind me. He smiled. Then quietly pointed toward a narrow concrete breezeway leading to an old storage garage. And in that moment, I realized the biggest surprise of the evening wasn't waiting inside the silver package. It was waiting behind that garage door. The garage door groaned as my father pushed it open, as if it hadn't been touched in weeks. The smell hit me first. Motor oil. Dust. Old paint. The sharp scent of rust hanging in the warm August air. He motioned toward a single white folding chair sitting beside a riding mower with a flat tire. "There you go," he said casually. "It's only for a little while." I stared at the chair, waiting for the punchline. It never came. "There wasn't enough room outside?" I asked quietly. Dad adjusted the cuff of his jacket without meeting my eyes. "The Henderson family brought more people than expected." "You're easygoing. You'll understand." Those 3 words landed harder than any insult. You'll understand. I'd heard them my entire life. When Brett forgot Grandma Ruth's birthday. When Mom needed someone to spend an entire Saturday organizing her closets. When Dad volunteered me to help relatives move. When holidays became work instead of celebrations. I always understood. And because I always understood, nobody ever bothered understanding me. Without another word, Dad walked back toward the garden. The sound of laughter drifted through the open breezeway. A violin began playing Vivaldi. Ironically, I had chosen that exact song after listening to nearly 20 different recordings before sending the quartet my final playlist. Now I was hearing it through concrete walls. I lowered myself into the plastic chair. Its metal edge pinched the back of my legs immediately. Across the breezeway I could see only part of the celebration. Gold chairs shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. Crystal glasses caught the light. Servers floated between tables carrying trays of champagne. Everything looked exactly the way my mother had imagined. Everything worked because I had made it work. Except me. I no longer belonged in the picture. My fingers tightened around the silver package resting on my lap. Inside was a restored wedding portrait. Beneath it were 4 years of tax receipts, certified letters, and legal documents proving I'd quietly saved our family's lake cabin from foreclosure after my father ignored years of unpaid property taxes. $11,400. Every payment came from my own savings. I never asked to be repaid. I only wanted to protect the place where every happy childhood memory lived. No one knew. No one had ever asked. Movement outside caught my attention. Grandma Ruth slowly turned her wheelchair toward the crowd. Then she began scanning the garden. Looking for someone. Looking for me. For one brief second our eyes almost met. Before they could, Aunt Deborah leaned over to speak with her, blocking her view. Meanwhile, Cody Marsh leaned back comfortably in his gold chair, laughing loudly with Uncle Martin. Watching him there made something inside me crack. This was the same cousin who had stolen Grandma Ruth's garnet earrings while she recovered from hip surgery. He had pawned them for barely $200. Everyone knew it. Everyone forgave him. Family makes mistakes, my mother had said. Apparently stealing from your grandmother earned forgiveness. But being the daughter who planned the anniversary party earned a seat beside lawn equipment. I looked toward the garden again. Brett had finally arrived. Fashionably late. Bottle of wine tucked under one arm. He was already accepting compliments for making it. No one mentioned he'd contributed absolutely nothing to the celebration. No one ever did. Because Brett was charming. Charm covered laziness the way expensive paint covered cracked walls. Minutes passed. I counted them without realizing. 1, 3, 6, 9, 11. Not a single person came looking for me. Not one cousin. Not one aunt. Not even my own mother. That silence answered a question I'd been asking myself for years. If I stopped doing everything, would anyone notice me, or would they only notice the missing work? The answer settled over me with frightening clarity. They didn't love the daughter. They depended on the system. And I had become the system. My therapist had once called it invisible labor. I had laughed back then. Sitting in that garage, I finally understood. Invisible people perform invisible work. The two always travel together. My phone buzzed softly. A notification from the family group chat. Someone had posted another smiling picture from the garden. The caption read, "Perfect day with everyone we love." Everyone. Except the woman sitting 20 feet away beside a lawn mower. I stared at the message for several seconds before locking my screen again. Strangely, I wasn't angry anymore. Anger demands energy. This felt different. It felt like waking up after years of sleep. I began doing what accountants always do when emotions become too loud. I counted. 15 years coordinating birthdays. Hundreds of appointments. Dozens of holidays. Thousands of phone calls. For years protecting the lake cabin. 5 months planning the celebration. 2 years restoring the wedding photograph. All of it. Reduced to one plastic chair hidden behind a garage wall. For the first time in my life, the numbers refused to balance. And when numbers don't balance, something has been hidden. I looked down at the silver package resting across my knees. I had imagined handing it to my parents while everyone applauded. I'd imagined my father finally seeing me. Really seeing me. Instead, he had walked away without asking what I was carrying. Without wondering why I looked hurt. Without noticing that the daughter who had quietly held his world together wasn't sitting at his table. She wasn't even in the room. A strange calm settled over me. Not sadness. Not rage. Something much quieter. Acceptance. Hope had finally stopped arguing with reality. I slowly stood. The folding chair scraped loudly against the concrete floor, echoing through the empty garage. For the first time that afternoon, I wasn't standing up to return to the party. I was standing up to leave behind the role I'd been playing for 15 years. And before I reached the garden gate, my mother called my name. My mother's voice cut through the music before I reached the gate. Iris. I didn't stop. The gravel crunched beneath my shoes as I crossed the courtyard. Conversations around the tables faded into awkward silence. People weren't watching because they cared. They were watching because something unexpected was happening. Iris, wait, my mother called again, hurrying after me. I turned only when I reached the entrance. She stood a few feet away, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Please, she whispered. Don't make a scene. I looked at her for a long moment. A scene? I asked calmly. You seated your daughter in a garage. Her expression tightened. It wasn't meant like that. Then how was it meant? She glanced nervously toward the guests. You know how these things work. No, I replied. I don't anymore. Her shoulders stiffened. You always understand. There it was again. The sentence that had shaped almost every decision I'd made since I was 19. You always understand. This time, it sounded different. Not like affection. Like permission to keep using me. I lifted the silver package so she could see it. I brought this for Dad. She reached toward it instinctively. I'll make sure he gets it. I gently pulled it back. No. Just one word. For the first time in my life, I watched my mother realize that no was a complete sentence. Without another word, I turned, got into my car, and drove away. That night my apartment was painfully quiet. The silver package rested on my kitchen table exactly where I'd placed it after coming home. I couldn't bring myself to unwrap it. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away either. My phone vibrated almost non-stop. Calls from Brett. Texts from Aunt Deborah. 2 missed calls from Dad. I ignored every one of them. Around 10 o'clock, curiosity finally won. I picked up my phone and opened the foster family group chat. Dozens of photos filled the screen. Champagne toasts. The anniversary cake. Family portraits beneath the floral arch I had spent weeks designing. I kept scrolling until something caught my attention. A conversation from nearly a week earlier. It had somehow slipped beneath newer messages. I frowned. Then I started reading. Mom. Seating update. Iris can sit in the side area. She'll probably be helping anyway. Dad answered a minute later. Put her in the garage. That leaves more room for the Henderson family. A laughing emoji appeared beneath his message. It belonged to Brett. She'll understand. Face with tears of joy. My chest tightened. The conversation continued. Someone asked whether they should tell me beforehand. Mom replied. Don't. She'll only make it awkward. Another message. She's handling the vendors anyway. She'll be too busy to notice. I read every word twice. Not because I couldn't believe it. Because I finally could. The garage wasn't an accident. It wasn't a last-minute seating problem. It wasn't bad planning. It was planned. Discussed. Agreed upon. Days before the party. And the cruelest part? The discussion had happened inside the very group chat I managed. The calendar. The reminders. The event planning. Everything flowed through me. Yet somehow they had all assumed I'd never see the messages. Not because they hid them carefully. Because they never imagined I mattered enough to look. I set the phone down. No tears came. There comes a point when pain grows so familiar that it quietly transforms into certainty. This was that point. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and created a spreadsheet. Old habits die slowly. The first column read. Task. The second. Frequency. The third. Responsible person. Then I began typing. Grandma Ruth's doctor appointments. Prescription refills. Insurance paperwork. Holiday planning. Birthday reminders. Vendor coordination. Travel arrangements. Cabin maintenance. Tax payments. Family calendar. Dad's medication reminders. Mom's warranty claims. Brett's car registration. Restaurant reservations. Christmas shopping lists. Emergency contacts. One line after another. When I finally reached the bottom, the spreadsheet contained 41 recurring responsibilities. 41. I stared at the list. No one had ever officially asked me to do these things. No one had ever thanked me either. The responsibilities had simply collected around me until they became invisible. Just like I had. A strange thought entered my mind. What would happen if every one of those 41 tasks simply stopped? Not dramatically. Not with an angry announcement. Just stopped. I leaned back in my chair. For years I'd believed I was holding my family together. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'd only been holding together the illusion that they didn't need to lift a finger. If that illusion disappeared, who would they become? I closed the spreadsheet, took one deep breath, and made the first decision entirely for myself. I opened the family chat settings. Without leaving a message. Without explaining. Without warning anyone. I removed myself as the administrator. Then I exited the group completely. The silence that followed felt terrifying. But for the first time in 15 years. It also felt like freedom. The silence lasted less than 24 hours. By Tuesday morning, my phone was buzzing again. Not because anyone wanted to know how I was. Because something had already gone wrong. Brett called first. Iris, quick question. Do you remember what time Grandma Ruth's podiatrist appointment is? Mom can't find it. I don't know, I answered evenly. A pause. What do you mean you don't know? You always know. I don't anymore. Another silence. Then, can you just check your calendar? I deleted it. You deleted it? I stopped managing it. Before he could argue, I ended the call. It felt strange. Not satisfying. Just unfamiliar. For years, solving everyone else's problems had been my automatic response. Now, I was learning that not answering was also an answer. By Wednesday afternoon, the cracks were becoming impossible to ignore. My mother left 3 voicemails. The pharmacy says Grandma's prescription hasn't been renewed. The caterer keeps asking about the remaining invoice. The photographer needs someone to approve the final album. Each message ended exactly the same way. Call me. I didn't. Those weren't my responsibilities anymore. Thursday brought another surprise. Instead of calling my parents, I called Grandma Ruth directly. She answered on the second ring. There's my girl, she said warmly. Those 3 words meant more to me than every compliment I'd ever received from the rest of my family combined. We talked for nearly an hour. Not about calendars. Not about appointments. About books she'd been reading. About the flowers outside her window. About Grandpa Harold and the old lake cabin. Finally, I told her everything. The garage. The group chat. The folding chair. The silence on the ride home. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed softly. I wondered how long it would take. I frowned. You knew? I knew they leaned on you too much, she replied. I just hoped one day you'd stop believing it was your job. Her words settled deep inside me. Then she said something I'd never forget. Your grandfather used to say the strongest fence post is always the first one people forget to repair. I smiled sadly. I think I'm done being the fence post. I think, she answered gently, it's about time. After we hung up, I looked around my apartment. For the first time in years, my weekend belonged entirely to me. No grocery lists for my parents. No birthday reminders. No planning meetings. No vendor calls. The empty space felt uncomfortable. But peaceful. Meanwhile, the foster family was beginning to experience life without its invisible manager. The anniversary venue emailed my mother about an unpaid cleaning fee. She had no idea what they were talking about. My father discovered a plumber standing on his front porch one morning. He hadn't known anyone was scheduled to come. Brett forgot to renew his vehicle registration. Aunt Deborah missed an important medical appointment because no reminder ever appeared. The family group chat became a confusing stream of unanswered questions. Who is Grandma's insurance number? What restaurant are we using for Thanksgiving? Did anyone order the birthday cake? Hours passed before anyone replied. Sometimes nobody replied at all. Watching it unfold wasn't satisfying. It was revealing. For 15 years, everyone believed the family simply functioned. Now they were discovering something they had never bothered to notice. Nothing had functioned on its own. It had functioned because I quietly carried it. And once I stopped, the entire machine began slowing down. But the biggest test was still waiting. Because 6 weeks after the anniversary party, my father would call about the lake cabin. And this time, he wasn't asking for help. He was expecting it. My father's call came just after 7 on a Monday morning. The moment I answered, I knew this wasn't a conversation. It was an expectation. Iris, he said sharply, we got a notice from the county. The cabin has another assessment. There's a deadline next month. You need to take care of it. Not, can you? Not, would you? Just you need to. I wrapped both hands around my coffee mug and looked out the kitchen window before answering. No. The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds. What did you say? I said no. You've always handled these things. I know. Then why are you acting like this? I took a slow breath. I'm not acting, Dad. I'm simply stepping out of a job I never applied for. His voice grew louder. You're tearing this family apart. No, I replied calmly. The family is discovering how much work one person was doing. He hung up without another word. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. A few days later, Grandma Ruth invited everyone to celebrate her birthday at a local restaurant. I almost declined. Then she called me herself. I'd really like you there. She didn't ask me to organize anything. She just wanted me to come. So I said yes. When I arrived, the family was already seated. As I walked toward the table, I noticed one empty chair waiting beside Grandma Ruth. Not hidden. Not pushed into a corner. A real chair. She smiled the moment she saw me. I saved this one. I sat beside her, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere without having to earn it. Dinner had barely begun when my father cleared his throat. We need to talk about the cabin. The entire table fell silent. The taxes, the account, none of us can access everything you set up. I looked at him. The cabin is in your name. But you know how all of it works. I did. You need to transfer everything back. I met his eyes. For years I paid the overdue taxes. I handled every notice. I protected that property because no one else would. His expression changed. What are you talking about? Without saying another word, I reached into my bag. I placed a worn manila folder on the table. Inside were copies of every payment. Every receipt. Every certified letter I had mailed. Every document proving that I had personally spent thousands of dollars saving the family cabin from being lost. Then I placed the silver package beside it. The same gift I'd carried into the anniversary party. The same gift that had never been opened. I untied the ribbon. Inside rested the beautifully restored wedding photograph. Beneath it lay the paid-in-full tax certificate. Grandma Ruth gently touched the frame. Her eyes filled with tears. My mother stared at the documents, unable to speak. My father slowly turned each page. His confident expression disappeared. I never knew. You never asked, I answered quietly. The restaurant became so silent that even the nearby conversations seemed far away. Then I spoke the words I'd been carrying for years. You didn't put me in the garage because there wasn't room. You put me there because you believed I'd accept it. You believed I'd always understand. I looked around the table. I do understand now. I understand the difference between being useful and being loved. No one interrupted. No one argued. Even Brett lowered his eyes. After a long silence, my mother whispered. I'm sorry. It was the first apology I'd ever heard from her. I appreciated it. But apologies don't erase patterns. They simply acknowledge them. I smiled gently. I forgive you. Then I added. But forgiveness isn't the same as going back. Grandma Ruth reached for my hand. Harold would have been proud of you, she said. Those 6 words healed something inside me that I hadn't realized was still broken. After dinner, I helped Ruth into my car. As we drove away, she laughed softly. You know, she said, your grandfather always believed the strongest person in the family wasn't the loudest. He believed it was the one who quietly carried everyone else. I smiled. I'm done carrying everyone. I know, she replied. And that's why you're finally free. Life slowly found a new rhythm. I focused on my career. I traveled. I spent weekends doing things I actually enjoyed instead of coordinating everyone else's lives. Grandma Ruth came over every Sunday for homemade cornbread and long conversations about Grandpa Harold and the lake. Eventually, I even started a small support group for people who had spent years becoming invisible inside their own families. Week after week, more people walked through the door. Different stories. Same exhaustion. Same quiet hope. One evening, someone asked, "When did your life finally change?" I smiled before answering. Not when I left the garage. It changed the moment I stopped believing I had to earn my seat. That's the lesson my family unknowingly gave me. Real love doesn't hide you when guests arrive. It doesn't value your usefulness more than your presence. And it never asks you to prove over and over again that you deserve a place at the table. Some people spend their entire lives waiting for someone else to pull out a chair for them. I stopped waiting. I built my own table instead. And the people who truly cared never asked what I could do for them. They were simply happy that I had arrived. That, more than any gift I could have wrapped in silver paper, became the greatest inheritance I ever received. The end.